Well, here we are, and thanks for tuning in to the brand new Behind the Mic Sports Media podcast. It's a brand new venture for me and on this channel, and well, if you're here and if you know anything about me and if you know anything about this channel, you probably have a good idea that I am a big fan of sports, but also a big fan of sports media and covering the landscape that is sports media. So this is something that I've been wanting to do for such a long time, is to start a sports media podcast to dive deep into the sports media world, into sports broadcasting and production and so on. I literally have been wanting to start this up for years, and finally the time has been right for me to get it started now, and it feels like a really good time to get it started just off of a spectacular World Cup, the biggest World Cup ever, and a World Cup that has been viewed here in America more than any other before it by a large margin. And we're going to talk a lot today with our first guest, Braylon Breeze, who covers sports media so extremely well, and we're going to talk with him about the World Cup and about the production of it on Fox and their coverage and what coverage is going to look like of the World Cup moving forward in 2030 and 2034. Glad to have you here. Hope that you enjoy the podcast and hope that you'll, if you do enjoy it, hit the like and subscribe button. I'm going to try my best to make this a weekly podcast to come out middle of every week as best I can. We'll have guests some weeks it'll be just me talking about the sports media news and breaking down, especially once we get into football season, breaking down a lot of the integral parts to sports media and sports commentary. Like I said, this is brand new and I have been thinking about doing it for years, but with this being the very first episode and being a very new show, I don't know what rabbit holes we might go down, but do hope that you enjoy it. It's going to be a labor of love on my end, and I'm really looking forward to it and looking forward to what may come of this run, however long it might last. So welcome to the brand new Behind the Mic Sports Media podcast. And we'll get into my conversation with Braylon Breeze, all things World Cup coverage on Fox, and as I said, what may happen with the World Cup on American television in 2030 and 2034. It was a great conversation. Braylon is awesome to follow on social media, so definitely do that, and it was great to talk with him for about an hour on all things World Cup. So, without further delay, here's my conversation with Braylon Breeze. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and here we go. And joining me, very first guest on this Behind the Mic sports media podcast that may last 3 months, it might last 3 years, it might last 30 years, who knows? But forever and always, the first guest, Braylon Breeze, who does an amazing job covering sports media of all kinds of different sports on social media. Great to have you on, Braylon. Thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you. I feel a bit honored to be the first guest on the first episode of the Behind the Mic podcast, correct?
There you go.
Yes. There we go. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this.
So it's a perfect time, at least in my mind, maybe I'm wrong. It's a perfect time to get this podcast started because we're quite literally just coming off the tsunami wave that is the World Cup. Before our football, if you want to call it that, begins. Everyone kind of calls this summer stretch the slowest point in sports, and perhaps it is. But the World Cup, we're going to spend all of our time talking about what we've just experienced over the last, month and a half, which was truly remarkable. I want to get started just from your side personally. I got the sense, reading your tweets, your posts, whatever we call them now on that app, that you came into it maybe not the biggest diehard seasoned soccer fan. Am I right in that?
Yes. Before pre-World Cup, I would watch the occasional Premier League. I would watch the occasional Champions League. I would watch like the Champions League final. but I would really just call myself somebody who watched like USA World Cup matches, and I'd pay attention and maybe watch the qualifiers. But yeah, I was definitely not a diehard soccer fan pre-World Cup. And now after the World Cup, I gotta be honest, it may be like it could be just recency bias, but it's my number one sport right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start with that, kind of just to base it off of that. So let's go from there. So because I think most people are probably like that. At least that's what Fox, I'm sure, was counting on, is to get a lot of casual fans and hope to turn them in to something closer to diehard fans. So we knew this was going to be a big deal. We knew 8 years ago when it got announced that this was going to be in the US along with Mexico and Canada, that this was going to be huge viewership for Fox and that it was going to really take over this continent along with the rest of the world. Did we really know how much it was going to do that, though? Because it feels like for the last 40 days, it's just been World Cup for everybody. Maybe it helps that not much else is going on other than regular season Major League Baseball and WNBA and a few motorsports series, but it does feel like it just took over the entire country.
The quick answer I would say is no. Nobody in their right minds thought the World Cup would get to the kind of I wouldn't even it's sort of beyond mainstream at this point. It's been like a household, like anybody in the country is aware, anywhere, any place in the country, anybody has been aware of the World Cup and what's been going on. I mean, I'm in rural Kentucky and everybody here even knows of all places. I mean, it's crazy. And just from a viewership side, nobody expected. We just got it today, 66.5 million viewers for the World Cup final. That obviously did not include the USA or anything alike. That's something an NFL championship game can't even really come close to. So, no, nobody expected the level this World Cup got to.
Yeah, same here, rural North Carolina. It's like so many people that I talked to at work or so on was just enthralled with it, and more than just the United States games. And obviously, a lot of people will come back to the time zones. It worked well with the time zones, better than it does in most World Cups. But at the same time, that does mean games still at noon Eastern or 3 p.m. Eastern on work days. But still, these games did enormous numbers.
Yeah, everybody wants to talk about the time zones, but maybe I'd be like contrarian here, but the time zones really weren't all that favorable to the United States when it got down to it. I mean, the semifinals were during the work days, midweek work days, and they still did great. The final was not even Sunday prime time. It was Sunday afternoon to cater to the whole world. Um, and there was still the typical group stage, like midnight matches, and those, by the way, still got like 6 or 7 million viewers just in the United States. Like that's a lot of people just watching a random midnight World Cup match against. They were usually like Algeria or Jordan. Like these are not top tier teams. So yeah, I mean the time zones help definitely, but there's more to the layers here for why this did so well, and I'm not sure anybody can really answer that question right now, right this fresh off the event.
Yeah, and Fox has to be thrilled with what they saw. I mean, I don't know if they were projecting these numbers, but they have to be over the moon for what they got with some of these enormous numbers. And I think there's, especially for two people like us, there's two ways of looking at this. It's one through a United States color shaded glasses and one without from a neutral standpoint. I want to start from the United States point of view of it did get the feeling, or at least I did, that even though people may have, and I'm just picking out random teams like Scotland and Paraguay and Germany, maybe not so much Paraguay because they were in the US's group, like they had no connection to these teams, but because they were playing, like if you're a Patriots fan and you see Scotland playing at Gillette Stadium or New England Stadium or whatever in the world it was called,
Yeah.
and all of these Scotland fans falling in love with New England, well, all of a sudden they're like, us, I'll get behind Scotland. And it kind of felt like you had a lot of that as well in it.
Yeah, I think Scotland might have been the best example you could use of just um they just kind of took over the scene in America. And like even it went to outside of Boston. I mean, the Tartan Army became a pretty known thing and just how crazy and enthusiastic they were about their team just making it. And it was sad they didn't go to the knockout
Yeah.
rounds. I was hoping they at least got there, but no. But yeah, I mean, you had like Algeria. I spoke of them. They were in Kansas,
Hmm.
to where Topeka. Am I wrong on this?
Yeah, I think
Um,
you're right. Yeah.
yeah, and it was Rock Chalk Algeria, basically. So yeah, I mean, yeah, they're just all fun stories. These teams getting connected with the cities they were in and the local communities. They really shined out. I mean, that's something I was worried about. Is like, would the U.S. care? I mean, this was a question a lot of people had. They had it in '94, and I didn't get to experience that, but people just wondered, would the United States care? Would they care where these teams were at? Would the teams host cities, the people there care? And I think they undoubtedly did.
Now, another thing that Fox had to be thrilled about were the stars that, I mean, just showed out. Like, I mean, we had, I think it was the first round of group games, there was a day on Fox where like Mbappe scored twice, Messi scored a hat trick. I can't remember who the other one was, but
Oh,
the superstars really showed up, and that's another thing that I wondered about with Americans, like because again, from 1994 to 2026, Americans know they're a lot more knowledgeable of this sport worldwide than say we even were say 2006, 20 years ago. And I think if you're one of those people that fall in love with superstars, and listen, I'm I'm a huge Mbappe fan. I love watching Kylian Mbappe. Um, if you're one of those people that fall in love with the superstars delivered.
more than delivered, really. Really, I think you didn't mention the one I think that maybe took the most storm, and that's Erling Haaland.
Yeah,
And he's also on the same. That was the third name you were looking for. Haaland, Mbappe, Messi. They were
yeah.
scheduled on the same days, which was, I mean, great scheduling. So, but yeah, I think Norway was kind of a surprise about. I mean, who thinks of Norway really when they think of soccer in America? And they really took by storm. And then Holland, I feel like Holland's sort of a household name now, and I don't think that really could have been said pre-World Cup. And like you said, I don't know how many Americans could name these superstars outside of like Messi or Ronaldo. I think Mbappe is pretty close to being there. But I think that list grew after this.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get in. This is a sports media podcast. Let's get into the sports media of it. Obviously, Fox has been under a very fine microscope for the last three World Cups that they've had, and a lot of people found a lot of fault in their coverage in both 18 and 22. There were some big changes for this World Cup. Maybe the most notable of all of them was bringing in Rebecca Lowe to host it from NBC, who we all know, if you're a Premier League fan, you've been hearing from her for almost a decade and a half on NBC. And her in the studio with Thierry Henry, who, of course, you can also see on CBS and Paramount Plus with Champions League coverage. Alexi Lawless, who always gets people talking, and then Zlatan Ibrahimovic, which no one knew what we were going to get from him. Like to have that studio, to have that four-person group as the studio that, covered what 90% of the games it felt like or close to it. I mean that was immediately setting the bar on what we were going to get from Fox.
It was rare that we did not see that panel of sometimes Alexi wasn't there. You would have at least the three of them. On some of the games. It was a rare day if you did not see them at all on Fox's talent lineup. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Rebecca Lowe really anchored Fox's coverage, and it's something Fox does not excel in. It made it feel professional. It made it feel like this like grandeur type broadcast. She really just brought in that feel that somebody, and it's no shot to Rob Stone. I love Rob Stone, but he's more of he's not going to hide it. He's a fan first USA type of guy. And that's why he was on the USA panel. And I thought the USA panel was excellent. But Rebecca, we already knew what Thierry Henry could do with the CBS coverage. And then Zlatan had his moments, and I think it was fun moments. It was just fun to see somebody not have any polish. They had none of that seasoning from prior TV. They were just kind of a loose cannon coming into Fox, and he would just do what Zlatan does, and it was about anything. You could bet on about anything happening. And then of course you have Alexi. Alexi's a Fox staple at this point. It is what it is. He gets the people talking, and that's what Fox likes. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, the panel out of all things is by far what got the most coverage. But I do want to talk about Fox's announcer teams were much improved as well, and I don't know if we're getting to that or not, but
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Believe me.
okay, yeah, yeah. They had yeah, I'll say it, but yeah, I thought the announcer teams they were really good as well, and I do want to shout out Jules Breach. She sort of covered that third team. And Javier Hernandez, I was a big fan of. I didn't know what to think of him coming on TV at all. But he was actually very informative. I liked his perspective. So yeah.
Yeah, he was really good. He shined a lot
Yeah.
and a lot of that was in games in Mexico or involving Mexico. That panel really did good. Peter Schmeichel, who was on, I think, their last Euros coverage. I'm not sure if he was on for the 22 World Cup, but he definitely was for their last Euros. I really enjoyed hearing from him. And you mentioned Rob Stone, and that was, one of the big differences was so they bring in Rebecca. What were they going to do with Rob Stone? And he was in the studio a couple of times, but it wasn't something that we saw very much. But what that allowed Fox to do was to send Stone and a second team out to a lot of different places and created almost a college game day kind of feel on site. I mean, they went everywhere. It wasn't just at US games. And that was really fun. I remember, I think they were at the first Netherlands game in Dallas against Japan, and we know what the Orange Army brings with the Dutch. And I mean, it was an incredible atmosphere. And I remember watching it because it was on a Sunday, and I thought, I would have never believed, I don't think anyone would have ever believed that you would have like a college game day kind of show at a non-USA soccer game that had that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, I mean, I said it on Twitter, X, whatever you want to refer to it as. That I thought the show they brought outdid the College Game Days atmosphere, and maybe some don't agree. College Game Day is more of like an early morning show to me, so I don't know if that atmosphere is more. It's not the whole part of the show. Um, but it was just they hit it. They hit it with it, and it wasn't even just U.S. games like you said. And really, you had the Netherlands, any Argentina game, they were there. I mean, they were Brazil. Brazil showed out. Scotland, and they were not even the only crew that was going on site as well. You had the Jules Breach crew as well, and obviously you have a home World Cup, so going on site I think should be a given, honestly. But Fox excelled at it. They excelled past that given bar. And they were just creating some great environments. I mean, I know we're trying to talk non-US stuff, but the USA crowds,
Yeah.
I didn't expect anything like that, especially Seattle. I know everybody was talking
Uh,
about Seattle, but the Seattle one lives up. Yeah, I didn't expect anything like that when they said they were going on site. I figured you might get some people out there, but nothing like the environments we saw.
yeah, the first game they played in Seattle against Australia on June 19th. It was incredible seeing them just come on air and just, I mean,
They couldn't even speak. They
yeah,
couldn't do the show. Yeah.
it was an amazing atmosphere. It really was. So, I mean, Fox really nailed that part of it. They did. And I'm gonna Fox is very controversial in a lot of ways, and I'm only talking about sports on that. Not even going into any other realms on
The
that.
sports department, from what I've gathered, is very, very controversial even in the sports media world. Yeah.
Yeah, so Fox does things to their own drum. And there's a few things that I'm going to mention a little bit later that I think, we can talk about. But that part, Fox really nailed that part. I just want to mention one more time before we go away from it. Rebecca Lowe was amazing. Like I just adore Rebecca Lowe. She is so amazing at what she does. And to think, again, just to go back, like if you're going back to 94, and I was not around in 94, I missed that by 3 years. Um, but just even mid 2000s, early 2010s, if you would have thought that a British woman would come over and command this much respect doing soccer in America on TV, it's just what an amazing career she's had just here stateside since 2013, and what she did in this World Cup was amazing. So I just want to get that out again. Now, you
I would
talked about,
like I'll
yeah,
add quick. Like it was emotional for me seeing that crew just sign off for the final
yeah,
time on the final. Um, they really were just. I know we talk about inside the NBA people and all that, but there was just something so authentic about that crew being a part of the World Cup for the past 6 weeks. So yeah, I completely agree with what you said. And one thing I'd like to add is the Rob Stone not only does the onside for the World Cup, but he usually does Big Noon Kickoff
yeah.
on college football season, and that set they used was the same as Big Noon Kickoff, I believe. So that was sort of
Okay.
fine in there. So yeah, but yeah.
Well, so I just wanted to say that again about Rebecca because I think she's amazing, and what she has now set up and what Fox has now set up, and we'll get into where the next World Cup will be on TV later. But what we've set up is like everyone's gonna want Rebecca Lowe to be a part of that, no matter what network it comes on. So that'll be really interesting to see um, as we get into the conversation about where it's going to end up in 2030 on American television. I do want to talk about the game crews, the announcing crews, and of course, me, a play-by-play broadcaster.
Yeah, this is your realm we're heading into. So I know I'll have my opinions, but you're gonna be the more the expert here.
Yeah, I really want to talk on about a number of different crews here. And normally I would start with the top crew, John Strong, Stu Holden, but I want to save that for a little bit later because I do have thoughts and I do want to get your thoughts on that team as well. But one of the, if you're, every network has, if they want to admit it or not, has a depth chart on, how high or low teams are. One of the lower crews in the pecking order that I really loved was anchored by Tyler Terrence, who is this young soccer play-by-play guy who maybe not a lot of people know of. He didn't get a lot of games, but I thought the ones that he did, he really shined. I'd love to get your thoughts on him.
I also enjoyed him. I believe he did one of the Canada group stage games, but he was kind of shelved like especially when he hit like match day 3, he was on like the FS1, like lesser ones. So he
Yeah.
didn't get a lot, like you said. Um, but yeah, I didn't like obviously I wasn't a diehard fan or nothing, so I didn't even know of him before the World Cup, and he was sort of a shocker to me about how well and how well spoken he was. He was paired with Maurice Edu, if I
Yep.
believe. Yep. I thought they worked really well. Yeah, I got nothing negative about them.
Yeah, I just thought that he really when you're matched up with guys like Ian Dark and Darren Fletcher and uh, Ian Crocker and so on, like it's really hard to shine in a group like that. And I thought he did shine. Now, one crew that I think was really controversial on social media was the JP Dellacamera and Lori Lindsay crew. And I just have to start with this. I know that a lot of people have soured on JP Dellacamera over the last handful of years. And now, granted, age is always a part of this when you get a broadcaster that gets up in age. But JP was and still is a legend of U.S. soccer commentary in this country. I think it's an absolute travesty that he's going to end his career not calling a men's World Cup final. on network television when he had so many chances, and ESPN made some decisions in 2002 and 2006, particularly.
Some
That
decisions, yeah.
yeah, that kept him off of the World Cup final when he was the most qualified person or one of the most qualified people to get that role, and they ended up giving it to Jack Edwards of Boston Bruins fame and Dave O'Brien, another Boston sports guy who, by the way, I love Dave O'Brien. Um, Perhaps that wasn't the best.
Dave O'Brien regrets calling the World Cup final as much as you do, so it's
Yes.
okay. It's okay.
Yes. Perhaps not the best usage of Dave O'Brien. Um, and again, JP, had he lost his fastball, yes, probably one or two World Cups ago, you could say that. I was just kind of upset to see that a lot of people that maybe don't watch the sport a lot and maybe don't have, and admittedly don't know him as fondly, remember him as fondly as I do. I was just kind of upset that that's how he went out.
Yeah, obviously I'm not the one to speak on this, so um it was shocking to see that his retirement happened like that. Like nobody, he went off the air, nobody knew that was the last time he'd be on the air for a World Cup match. Um and from what I can say from my limited soccer viewing, I caught the 2026 version of JP. And something on my Twitter, my social media, I always try to just I don't want to bash on any commentator. There's nothing I'm getting out of just being negative about some commentator. I try to just keep it say something positive about somebody or just don't usually try and mention it. And I don't know if it was like a Mike Joy or like I'm trying to use Mike Joy. 'Cause a lot of people think Mike Joy's lost his
Mhm.
fastball. I don't know if it's a situation like that. I should go probably watch some more clips of JP. Um, but he had a very, I don't know if it's almost like an American style of commentating the game, but
Yes.
he's always speaking. He's always speaking throughout the
Mhm.
match. And you either like it or you don't, I guess. And obviously, a lot of people, a lot of people on Twitter, did not. And I don't know if they had much history with JP or not. I tried to stay away from talking about such. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously a legend. He's like, who can, like, you can't think of a voice that's been with U.S. soccer since the 90s besides JP. And he has. And then you mentioned how he didn't get the '02 final, the '06 final. I think it's pretty crazy he did not get either one of those, considering how, I mean, he's just so tenured of calling stuff. And then you have Jack Edwards, who's nowhere near soccer, or Dave O'Brien, who's nowhere near soccer, who called those. And it wasn't even until 2010, really, till we got like an actual soccer commentator to call the World Cup
Yeah.
final, US. So it took a long time. But yeah, is what it is with JP.
And I've got some kind of other thoughts, just since we talked about Jack Edwards. I've got
Yeah.
some kind of other thoughts on how
Yeah,
we could go.
speaking of controversial commentators,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly right. So I have some thoughts on that later because we're going to tackle, the best way we think an announcer, a top announcer should be of this sport in this country. But JP, who is just so, again, in my mind, forever a legend. So I'm going to miss him moving forward. Again, obviously the Women's World Cup not on Fox next year; it's on Netflix, and he won't be a part of that coverage. And that might hit even harder because he's been so synonymous with the Women's World Cup going back
uh,
to '99.
yeah. I believe he. I think I looked this up during because I was trying to think. I was trying to put some stats out about like some commentators. And I believe he called more women's World Cups than men's, but I could be wrong on that. I don't know exactly. I think he called 19 total, which
Yeah,
is
I think you're
crazy.
right on that because he didn't do TV for the 2010 or 2014 Men's World Cups, but he was on radio, ESPN
Yes.
radio. Which, by the way, I didn't plan on bringing up, but we have to have a better radio outlet for the World Cup. Like, I would get on Sirius XM and all I would get was the
Yeah.
TV broadcast on radio. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I should have. I'd never sent anything out, and I regret not. Because it's like we have the World Cup going on, and we can't get a radio broadcast from Fox Sports. Like we never had a single radio broadcast.
Yeah,
It was rough. And
yeah,
one last thing on JP, I feel like obviously like Fox is not going to say they have a depth chart, but he definitely in recent World Cups went down the depth chart.
yeah,
I don't think he even got around a 16 match with Lori Lindsay this year. And then back in 2018, Fox's first one, I don't know if he got the second crew, but he got the third place game. So I
yeah.
mean, you're sort of the second crew there, which we can talk about later with Fletcher and Dark, and yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, so that's a great segue because Fox brought in Ian Crocker, who I think a lot of people loved. He's a legend over, especially in Scotland. Jackie Oatley was a part of the Fox coverage again with Warren Barton. Those two, I thought those two did really well. I love listening to Ian. He's very relatable, I think. I just find Ian Crocker very relatable.
I don't have much experience with them, but I mean that crew. I don't know if it was my favorite crew, but they if they were not favorite, they were right there for second. I don't know. Their chemistry was off the charts, and I
Yeah.
really liked Ian. I didn't know anything about Ian Crocker before, and I was so bummed they didn't even get to have a round of 16 match.
Oh, yeah.
They sort of got bounced early, which I was so sad about because if you had the pleasure of listening to them for any match in the World Cup, it was great. And then yeah, Jackie Oatley and Warren Barton, they were sort of like the Pac-12 after dark crew for the World
Yeah.
Cup. They were always calling these midnight games. And I just grew to like it was kind of like a sicko fun to just have them. I mean, Warren Barton is going to say what he thinks.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just I was all there for it. I was liking it. So yeah.
Yeah, Jackie's really good. Like,
Yes.
I mean, Netflix would be very smart to aim at her to lead their coverage for the Women's World Cup next year. Uh, and I don't think we've had a single announcement on what Netflix is planning on doing next year.
Yeah, oh, someone asked me about that, and I'm like, they don't have anything yet. So, to be determined. But I saw she also does some NWSL stuff. She was like
Mhm.
on it, like while the World Cup was still going on after she completed
Yeah.
her World Cup coverage. So, does she usually do like stateside stuff? Or
Yeah, she's been on NWSL with CBS for I'm wanting to say 3 or 4 years. Kind of
okay.
that, yeah, kind of around there. But yeah, Netflix would be very smart if they reached out to her to certainly be on the coverage. I think she could lead the coverage myself. Now, okay, you have to kind of talk about these top four crews all as one almost, or at least the way that I want to talk about them. Because I like you, I don't like talking badly about announcers because, well, first off, it's poor form. And secondly, not everybody likes everybody. That's just the world we live in. But okay, we have to dive into this
It's I'm gonna have to let some of my thoughts out on yeah because I
because we have three crews that I think everyone loved. Darren Fletcher and Owen Hargraves were amazing to listen to. Did they go over the top in the third place game? Yes. But it was still entertaining to listen to. Ian Dark has been one of the great voices of this sport worldwide and in this country for many, many years. I mean, he was on the World Cup in '94 for ESPN and ABC. He's been around it for a long time in this country. He had the Landon Donovan goal, his partner. He had the Landon Donovan goal against Algeria in 2010. He was the lead voice for ESPN in 2014. Almost everyone here loves him, and that's saying something because, again, he's not an American. You have Derek Ray and Rob Green. Derek Ray is spectacular. He's been on video games, and I know the FIFA or what's it called now? FC?
PAFC
Yeah.
FC.
Oh, sure. He's been on those video games for a long time now. People love Derek Ray. He and Rob Green, I think, created this great team. You've got three terrific teams there. None of them are the top team. Instead,
Nope.
it's John Strong and Stu Holden, two Americans. Now, they've been the top team on Fox for a long time, for all three of their World Cups. You do get the sense that when Fox came into this 8 years ago, that they wanted Americans to be their top crew. They wanted that American voice for the casual Americans to latch onto. If that's their thought process, you're probably not going to change their minds, and clearly no one has. But I just have a really hard time. I'm trying so hard to stay as nice as possible about this. I really have a hard time thinking that that team is better than any of the other three that I mentioned. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So usually before the World Cup, I would cover a lot of NHL and NHL Twitter, social media people. They love to have their time with Sean McDonough and John Strong or Stu Holden. It took it to. I mean, I thought Sean McDonough hate on social media was a lot, but the amount of comments or like just anybody talking about John Strong and Stu Holden, it was just way worse than what I get with Sean McDonough. Um, and I think it's just worse when you not only have like one crew that's gets more love from a lot of people, like you do with the NHL with Bob Wischusen and whatever, but you have two top-notch crews. You have not two, but you have three top-notch crews. You have Ian Dark, who has called a World Cup final in the United States. You have Darren Fletcher, who is one of the lead voices in the UK, lead voice for TNT, calls the Champions League for the UK. And you have Derek Ray, who is about as pristine and quality as you can get. He's a lead voice for the Bundesliga in the United States. He's the lead world feed commentator for them. So these are three guys that have way more experience than your top team. And Sean McDonough at least has experience in NHL. But they just don't, there's just not much going in their favor regarding John Strong and Stu Holden. And what I tell myself that it has to be is what you told, which was what you said a second ago, and that's that Fox has gotta want an American team on the call for their number one crew in these US games because I don't have any other explanation for why for why it's the case. Um, but yeah.
I have a feeling that you're going to be on this podcast again sometime in the near future, and we're going to have a great hockey conversation. But because you are right on the hockey side of things, Sean McDonough gets a lot of hate because everyone loves Bob Wischusen. It's one thing for a broadcast team to get a lot of hate. More times than not, it's because they think a crew below them is better. And a lot of people love Bob Wischusen more than they do Sean McDonough. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you when once we get into football, our football season on this podcast, I will be saying a lot of similar things about Sean McDonough should be the top college football voice over Chris Fowler. That will be said on this podcast. I promise you. Just get ready for that. But it it's one thing to say that you don't enjoy listening to John Strong or Stu Holden. That's fine. But as I listen, and I think Stu, I feel like Stu does a good enough job. I would not say Stu Holden is terrible by any means. He's on top of a lot of things. He points it out quickly. He does a great job at kind of guiding, again, a lot of casuals, which you have to do with the World Cup, a lot of casuals through what is happening. But there are times where I'm like, I don't know how he gets a moment to talk because John Strong doesn't stop talking.
It's just constant. It's just never letting they don't let and it's just you got to let a moment breathe sometimes.
Yeah.
And you don't always got to be so over the top. Like you don't John Strong is just he wants to find that moment that can be like his moment and like when you listen to this video, it was his voice on it. and it was this
Yeah.
great goal. But he's making every goal sound like it's the best goal. Like it's just always the same over the top for every goal. Um, so there's just I don't know. There's never any fluctuality with it. And Stu Holden, I don't mind Stu Holden. I think he's solid. I think he can. I think he's good for a USA crew. He can
Yeah.
give those USA fans what they need. And he's a nice guy. I have nothing. He's always been. He's nice. But yeah, I think my main issue is more John Strong
Yes.
than Stu Holden. And I hear from people that John Strong used to be different in his style pre this top team when he was with the Timbers, but I can't comment on that, so I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah, and I just like if you're a type of person, and I don't know how many people are like this, but if you want to get into the weeds of play by play, you're gonna I think you're gonna like this podcast because there's gonna be a lot of that in the future. Because again, I do have a background in play by play. It's basically been my life from from when I was born almost. And this sport is so different than any other sport, and it's so niche. But the way he holds syllables in people's names when they score, the way he just gets so high and then stays there. I find it to be a hard listen. I really do. And I believe I saw the tweet you put out, and he did 21 games.
it's not even. Yeah, it's they're the number one crew, and they're the number one crew by quite a bit. They
Yeah,
get both the semifinals. They get like three of the eight quarterfinal games.
yeah,
Um, it's just they're out there. It's you're not gonna miss them. You're not
yeah.
gonna miss them if you're watching the World Cup. So
And it's not only the idea that I do have I find him to be a hard listen, but again, it's as we said, Ian Dart, Derek Ray, Darren Fletcher, who we could be having on this. Like Ian Dark, and I get that there are people that think that Landon Donovan is just very vanilla. I get it. But the idea that that's the team, that it's Ian Dark and Landon Donovan, the idea that Landon Donovan scored that iconic goal in 2010 and it was Ian on the call of it, and he had that great call, Go Go USA. Like, I just, that's where I feel like Fox is underestimating the viewer. Like I think most viewers would love if that were the top crew. If that crew got both semifinals and the final, I think people would eat it up. I know I would.
and it's not like In Dark has not been the voice of the
Yeah.
U.S. team before. I mean, he was the voice for a very long time, and even up, I believe it was up until ESPN lost the U.S. men's national team rights, he was still the voice for the U.S. I remember watching the qualifiers, and he was the one calling most of those games. And it's just, I don't know. Like if it was me, I would still rather have In Dark be the voice of the USA than John Strong. And I think a lot of fans might align themselves more with In Dark than John Strong when they think of USA.
Yeah. Now I don't want this to be just the we're bashing
Yeah.
John Strong show because again, he did 21 games over what was it, 39 days? I mean,
It's
that's an incredible to do all of that prep. And so I mean, he did off the top of my head, I know he did an Algeria game because when they played Argentina, like that's a very random team to have to get ready for. Like he did Cape Verde twice, which what a story they were. See, that was another thing too. I just Cape Verde and Argentina was like maybe the game of the entire tournament. And I just kept thinking to myself, what would that have sounded like with Ian or Darren or Derek? But
I
that
feel like we were on Cape Verde, we were just too negative. They were too much bashing what was happening, and it was just it sort of wasn't fitting the moment at times. Because the moment was incredible,
yeah.
but it was I don't know, it was an odd dynamic. But yeah, I mean, John Strong, he has called now three World Cup finals in the United States. There's never been any other play-by-play commentator to ever call more than one. Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, at least there's consistency, I guess. But that might be gone too now with who knows who gets the rights. So
Yeah, so okay, perfect segue. Let's talk about that because it's not a done deal that Fox is going to have this in 2030. Now, the ratings that they have gotten have created, oh my gosh, a firestorm of a bidding war now because from what you read, everyone wants it now. Fox wants to re-up. CBS might be in. NBC might be in. Netflix certainly is in. ESPN seems to, and Disney is certainly seems to be in. Maybe even Prime, perhaps Apple TV, although they seem like a very much the underdog in that. Like, how do we shape up the race to get the 2030 and what would subsequently be the 2034 World Cup?
I said on Twitter that I think the bigger story will be who does not try to put in for World Cup rights than who does at this
Yeah,
point, because we've already had chatter from Fox, we've had chatter from ESPN, we've had chatter from NBC, and the World Cup just ended 2 days ago. Um, and I would say Netflix, you could throw into that as well. They're probably going to try. Um, I don't know where it ends up. I don't know how to predict that. I believe 2030 and 34 are going together. So whoever gets
yeah,
30 is getting 34. And FIFA has said, quote unquote, said that they want the English and Spanish rights to go together in a bundle. But if they see the money, I feel like they're going to take the money. And I just think you can get more money out of separate rights. We just saw it with the Bundesliga deal. So I don't know. I don't know. I do hope the World Cup rights do not go to a streamer. I hope it does not go to a Netflix. Um, but I think there's a chance, but we'll see.
yeah, and obviously they've got the Women's World Cup next year, like we talked about, and that's going to be
I'm worried for the numbers on the Women's World
yeah.
Cup. But it's probably still going to be up from the last one because the last one was in Australia and
Oh
such.
my
So
gosh.
yeah, it was brutal to watch as an American viewer. It was tough. It was tough
Oh,
to get through
it
the week.
was that
Yeah.
was awful.
Were you
I
calling
was
the games then?
yeah, yeah, it
Okay.
was awful.
Your sleep schedule was probably a little messed
Oh
up.
God, it was terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
I wasn't a soccer fan. I was very young in 2002 when the World Cup was in Japan and South Korea, so I don't have a background on that. So that Australia New Zealand Women's World Cup was along with the Asian Olympics that we've had. Like that was oh God.
I remember I stayed up for the first women's game and it was like 3 or 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So it was brutal. And then I don't think they won that one. So yeah, when I hear about 2038 men's World Cup potentially going to Australia, New Zealand, I'm like,
Uh
please no,
no,
please no,
no,
please
I
no.
can't.
So yeah, so
Nothing
yeah,
against our Australian and New Zealand
it's
friends, but
terrible for us.
um the part that you mentioned there that is really eye-raising and interesting is that the idea that FIFA does want the English and Spanish rights to be in a bundle. One would think one could make the assumption that that puts NBC in a good spot, right? Because I mean, they've had it with Telemundo on Peacock, the last at least two World Cups, maybe even three. Um, I kind of think that that puts them in a good spot. I would love to see what NBC could do with it. I mean, again, Rebecca Lowe. You could
Already got
utilize,
her.
yeah, you could utilize Mike Tirico in a hosting role as well. Although
It
he,
would feel, I think it would feel very Olympics if NBC.
yeah,
It would
yeah, I
feel
think
very prestigious. It would not feel like Fox.
no,
Um, and you already have lots of talent. You already have Premier League. You have like Tim Howard. Just you can bring Tim Howard out there
yeah,
to signed.
yeah,
Um, so
uh,
yeah, but
and and you would have Mike Tirico there, who I think is just like already on the Mount Rushmore of announcers in this country, and he's hosted two World Cups, maybe even three. I know he certainly hosted 2010 and 2014 on ESPN and ABC. Like you said, Tim Howard, the Robbies, John Champion, who I am an enormous fan of, who is stuck somehow on the number two crew on ITV, which is unbelievable that they choose Sam Matterface to be their lead announcer on ITV over John Champion. You'd have him, perhaps, who of course does the Premier League and the Olympics on NBC. I would love for NBC to get a crack at this.
Peter Jury probably as well, which
Oh,
I'm a big fan of him. I've really enjoyed since he's gotten added after I think it was Arlo White before, and then he went
yeah.
to Live Golf of all things.
What a
So
choice.
what a
What
choice.
a
Uh,
choice.
I think NBC upgraded after all. Um, and then yeah, when I've caught Premier League matches, I really enjoy his voice. He's kind of like a Darren Fletcher almost with his like enthusiasm.
Peter is like a poet. I don't know
Yeah.
how he does it. Like if and he's calling the final. He's the top guy on the world feed. Like if you could lure him away, I mean that would suck for John Champion because I just love John Champion, who was the number two crew here in the States for so long. But if you could lure Peter Drury away, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we're talking about like legit blowing it out of the water coverage. So and again, there's all this talk about it might be 64 teams when we get to
We don't
2030.
even know we don't know what the format's going to be like yet.
Right. And if it's 64 teams, it's so many more games. There's a lot of talk about maybe splitting the rights, which we've never had here.
Yeah, I've brought that up too. I don't know why that couldn't be a possibility if we go to 64. I mean, a lot of these countries already split the rights with the 48 team format we had this year. You have BBC and ITV.
Hmm.
In the UK, you have multiple in Germany, you have multiple in many places. So I mean, it wouldn't be anything new on a world landscape, and it's more money for FIFA. FIFA loves
Yeah.
money. So uh,
Yes, we do.
but yeah. And another thing I'd like to say is I've always heard ESPN's World Cup coverage was very good. I
Yes.
always heard it was very prestigious. I'm so young, I really didn't get to fully embrace that. Like I remember 2014 briefly, but I was 9 years old.
Oh,
I've
enjoy
grown
your
up.
youth. Enjoy your youth.
Yeah. So I've grown up in the foxification of world soccer. And now I get to experience, they basically have the trifecta because, like we were talking about, they want to keep viewers. They want to keep viewers because they have the Euros, they have Copa America, and they have even like the smaller Gold Cup. They have Nations League. I mean, they have a portfolio now, more than any other network by a wide margin. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And like this was the best Fox had done overall with the World Cup. Like I don't want it to come across like I did not enjoy Fox's coverage. I wish they had a better top announcing crew. But like their coverage was really great. The production value was great. We talked about the studio. I get so deep in the weeds on this stuff, as I'm sure you probably do too. Like when it's time for the players to walk, when the teams to walk out of the tunnel, you have that Shakira song that's stuck in my head as the
Yes.
teams are walking out, and you have the Fox graphics come up showing the matchup. Like they really knocked it out of the park production wise with this World Cup. But I do feel like after three, I am ready for someone else to take over because you're right. ESPN's was so great. Like their their coverage of South Africa in 2010 and Brazil in 14 was so great. And I would love I would love to see that rekindled and what they would do with that because I'm trying to think in my head. In 2010, they had Chris Fowler and Mike Tirico as hosts. In
They
2014,
brought
they
out
had
all the big names. All
yeah, in 2014 they had Mike Tirico and Bob Lee, who of course was so huge on their soccer coverage. He called a final in '98.
Yep.
Um, I would like to see what NBC could do. I'd like to see what ESPN would do. Can't say anything about Netflix right now because we haven't seen it.
Netflix has about one sports personality, and it's Elle Duncan, who's their
Yeah,
sports host for whatever
yeah.
that's supposed to mean. I
Built,
don't, they
even
don't,
doing building climbing in was
yeah,
it
I remember
Thailand?
watching that, and I'm like, we got Elle Duncan calling this. So I guess that's her job now. I'm sure she's getting a good check. So, but yeah, NBC would be if it'd be the one I prefer, I think. But honestly, I'm probably in the minority, but I sort of would like to see Fox get it.
Hmm. Okay.
I thought their coverage for this World Cup was good. And I didn't get to experience 2018 Russia a lot, and I'm sure that struggled. 2022 was a little bit of a struggle. You had, I believe it was Chad Johnston they had on the panel as an NFL player. And I was very lost. I was like a very new fan, never really watched before that. And I was just like, what are we doing? I didn't know what to do. Um, but yeah, and one thing I like to say about Fox, also on a viewership note, is they really maximized the numbers you can get. They maximized their
Yeah,
broadcast windows. They had like 75% of World Cup matches
right.
on broadcast TV. And if you want to talk about numbers, I don't know if anybody can get better numbers than Fox gets other than NBC. I think NBC can. Um, I don't know if ESPN can or not. I would have liked to say ESPN could, but we saw Euros move to Fox and they did a lot better.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, and that's a thing with ESPN that when they did have it, they did not utilize ABC enough, in my
Lots of
opinion.
ESPN.
Yeah,
Lots of
a
ESPN.
lot of ESPN and ESPN2 for
Lots of
when there
Reese
were.
Davis. Lots of Reese
Yeah, yeah,
Davis.
Reese Davis on there. Now we could go down the line of who they had hosting. Goodness gracious, Brent Musburger.
I was yeah, I've seen it was on Sports Media Watch, great website.
Yes.
That Brent Musburger was hosting World Cup studio
Yeah.
halftime reports from like a horse track at one
Yeah,
point.
from the Belmont. Yeah, in
Yes,
'06. Yes,
yes.
because he was doing the
And I was
Belmont.
like, oh my.
Yeah, and
Soccer's come a long way.
yeah, no kidding. Good
Yeah.
Lord. And of course the great Jim McKay in '94. Oh my God. I love Jim McKay. Uh
See, I was talking about this with someone, but I never caught Musburger at his peak. I caught him calling SEC Network college football games,
yeah,
which is what I got to experience of him. But yeah, yeah. World Cup host will go in his that'll
yeah.
be a book for me.
Now, to your point about the ratings, like as you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I probably should have mentioned it too, 66 million is the number that we've had reported. Is that right? From Fox plus Telemundo, which is is the highest rated non-Super Bowl on American television since what, the '94 Winter Olympics, which would have been Tanya and that whole mess,
Yeah.
Tanya Harding and
And
Nancy Kerrigan with Vern
oh,
Lundquist, because of course.
I'm sure Fox Research can find an exact number because I can never find an exact number on those 94 Winter Olympics telecasts. But I mean, it's something in the 70. I mean, it's 70 million, 80 million. It was something crazy for the 94 Winter Olympics. But yes, those include match window onlys for the Fox and Telemundo. No pre-match included in that. That is the most watched since 94, like you said, and most watched non-Super Bowl slash news telecast since Seinfeld series finale in
Oh,
1998. And by news telecast, I'm meaning presidential debates.
yeah.
So yeah. So
Good
yeah.
Lord. I
I
think,
mean, even with Nielsen's changes and all the added measurements we have, I mean, this is safely like breaking records still. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
and it is crazy to think that this did more than an NFC or AFC championship game. We know how
By
enormous
about it did about 16 million more than
that's
than this year's NFC and AFC championship games. Not
that's
even that close.
wild.
So yeah.
That, that's wild because we know how big that Sunday is in this country. That's wild.
Yeah.
Um, okay. We have to wrap it up at some point because people are going to stop listening to us, but I could go on for many more hours. Um, I do want to wrap up with the U.S. side of this, and we know how disappointing of an end it was and how controversial of an ending it was for the U.S. team. Do you think that off of all of this, is there substance to this moving forward? Now, granted, the 2030 World Cup, whoever gets it, it's not going to have ratings like this. It's just not in
It doesn't have
Morocco, Portugal, and Spain.
it doesn't have to either. I mean,
Right.
it could fall by 50% and you're still up 50 or 60% from the next most viewed World Cup before this year, which would be Qatar 2022. Even being in the fall, it broke records. And you'd still be up 50% from that if you fall 50% from this year's. So, I mean, there is room for a decline, and you're totally fine. I mean, networks will totally take an average of 5 million viewers per match, and
Oh
they're
yeah.
going to be okay. They're going to be okay.
Oh yeah. They absolutely. So do you think that this massive World Cup that we've had, is this going to be what gets the ball rolling? Because I've heard it my entire life that soccer is going to overtake the NHL and Major League Baseball and the NBA, and it's going to be second behind the NFL and college football. Like, is this what finally gets it? Because if this isn't, you kind of feel like it's never going to happen, and I have a hard time believing that it's ever going to pass, certainly the NBA. But, like, we live in a world now where even here in North Carolina or Kentucky, wherever here in the US, you can wake up on a Saturday morning and find Crystal Palace and Fulham. You can find Real Madrid against whoever in Spain. You can find a PSG game. Does this make a difference with this sport now in this country? And do you think the MLS in any way is going to see an uptick from all of this?
I'll start this. I'm going to have a lot to say. I'll start by saying it's made a difference on me. Um, I'm very interested. I mean, I'm waiting for in 30 minutes we have a Liga MX game on TuneIn, and like I'm probably gonna tune in because there's nothing else to watch. And I'm interested in just seeing what all these leagues are about now. Like I'm just gonna tune into whatever I can. And I think a lot of the standpoints of, oh, the MLS is going to pass the NHL, oh, the MLS is going to pass the MLB. It's a lot of bad faith arguments usually. I mean, this thing, there's been this whole MLS versus NHL rivalry since I've gotten into sports. It's so weird because since I've gotten into the sports media stuff a few years ago, it's just one always the main things. NHL fans are always wanting to do better than MLS, or MLS wanting to do better than NHL, and it's just. But anyway, I would say soccer is more popular than hockey, but I would not say. I think that could be already true. I don't know if you agree, but I think soccer is more popular than hockey in the U.S.
Yes, but
Okay,
MLS is not more popular than the NHL.
not even close.
Right.
Close. I mean, MLS is third in the U.S. on viewership, so
Yeah.
um, yeah. But yeah, another thing before I get to MLS is I don't think a lot of people realize how good even pre-World Cup the Premier League and League MX did in the United States. Premier League like averaged it was like 700K throughout the season. Opening weekend averaged a million viewers in the US across 10 matches. And then Liga MX games on Univision, TuneIn, they'll get a million viewers a night like it's nothing. Which obviously that's Spanish language, was a little different audience. But yeah. Um, and for MLS, we got their Friday Fox numbers for their doubleheader. Um, they're not that much up from what there was. It was like 587K for Nashville, Atlanta, and 507 or 8K for Galaxy LAFC, which is the former is the most watched of the season, but it's by like 20K over a Miami game. And obviously the MLS has the issue of they're always available on Apple. I watched the LA match. I was watching on Apple. I don't know. I would never want to watch on Fox over Apple if I'm choosing MLS. Apple has the superior coverage. I've already learned that. Um, so I think there's room for growth, and there will be growth. Um, I don't think it's going to be as much as people think, to be honest with you. I think people just like big events in 2026,
Yeah.
and they're going to tune into big events. And maybe I think a big event could be the Euros or Copa America. I think you could see bigger viewership for those, but I don't know how much you're going to see for the leagues. You will see an increase, but it's not going to be. I'd be surprised if it's double or triple what they were getting.
And the Premier League season starts as we record this. We're recording this on Tuesday, July 21st. So it's exactly a month from kickoff of the Premier League season. So do you have a Premier League team yet?
I do. Also, the Premier League released their TV NBC schedule today for the
Yes.
sickos out there. So, yes, I do have a team. I've I've sort of off and on followed the past 2 seasons. It's Everton of all teams.
Oh,
So yeah, I did
okay.
not want to go. I did not want to go Big Six. I did not want to go Big Six. Man U or Spurs were always potential for me just because they don't dominate like they used to. Or I mean, Spurs never really dominated, I guess.
Wow.
But yeah, I went Everton. They have a Big Six rival with Liverpool, I guess. They got a good
Mhm.
fan base. They have the Tim Howard USA connection of the
Yeah.
past. They've had a lot of USA players, honestly. But they don't have any right now. But yeah, that's who I like. You
Okay.
have one? Or can you
So,
not say as a commentator? Can you
well, so I have tried to bring my fandom down as much as possible, but I was always a Manchester United fan because when it took me a while to get into this sport. My first involvement in soccer and being a fan was the 2010 World Cup, and I would be like 13, so I wasn't in it from like day one, like I was with say a NASCAR or a college basketball. Which in North Carolina are really the two sports you get into pretty
yeah.
quickly.
NASCAR is
Um,
something I used to grow up on a lot.
oh,
Yeah,
we
we
could
can
have
get
a
into
whole
that some other time. Yeah,
we could
yeah.
have a whole other conversation
Yeah.
about about NASCAR. But yeah, I was a Manchester United fan. Again, I've tried to take my fandom down across all sports. It's less stressful
It is less stressful. That
because
guy.
I grew up as a Cincinnati Reds fan too, and God, that what a horrible decision that was.
Very casual Reds fan, so I can under
Those,
my family watches all the games, so I'm always understanding what's going on. I know
well,
it's rough again as usual right now. So so yeah. You
yeah,
are a Canes fan, right? Or would
oh
you
yeah,
not say you're a fan?
yeah.
Okay.
So that's
I saw
another
your
one.
call.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's another one that I've really tried to keep.
They're not making it easy.
They're not. It'd be a lot easier if it was like they were 10 years ago, but it's much more fun this way. Um, but yeah, so Premier League in a month with Arsenal and Coventry. Coventry who just got promoted. So we'll see. We'll see what it's like. The Premier League is always the league that most Americans choose. Although you'll have your Real Madrid and Barcelona and Atletico Madrid fans or Bayern Munich, maybe even PSG. Um,
So hard to watch PSG, sadly, with Liga. Is it Liga Un is the correct way to say
yeah,
it? It's on BN Sports. Most people don't even know
right,
what that is. So
right,
most people
yes.
listening right now probably don't even know what that is. So, but yeah,
Yeah, I never had BN Sports.
I've never had it either. I don't know. I don't know where you get it. I don't. It's out there somewhere. It
It has to
exists.
be somewhere.
But yeah,
So okay, well, I'll be interested to see what those numbers do in about a month because I do think there's something to be said for I think people are probably a bit soccered out now because it was what 6 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. Give it a month, take a breath, and then Arsenal they've been in the Champions League final. They finally won the title. Maybe a lot of people will latch onto them. I'm sure you're probably going to have a lot more people latch onto Manchester City here in America with Erling Haaland, and because everyone loved Erling Haaland. I mean, I know just here in my state in North Carolina that because they were based in Greensboro, and there are a lot of people here that are like, "Oh my gosh, I take a liking to Norway," and if you take a liking to Norway, you're going to take a liking to Erling Haaland, who just who looks like he just stepped off the Viking ship.
just off of it. Just
So, okay, well, can't wait to see what the Premier League does numbers wise. Um,
and another thing is the Bundesliga is also on USA too. So at some
yeah,
point now, and they get a match. The Super Cup will be on USA during Premier League opening weekends. We'll see some Bundesliga numbers, which is a rarity, but we will get to see that now. So yeah, I'll add that in.
yeah, it's changed from ESPN to USA, and what did they fan what?
Fandango.
I feel like I know a lot about sports media more than most. What is that?
I was little. I was like, what are we? What's going on here? Have you ever heard of Voodoo? Do you remember Voodoo?
Yeah, yeah, wow.
Okay, so that's rebranded Voodoo.
Oh,
And it's under
okay.
the Versant umbrella, which I'm not even sure how many people know what Versant is, but
Wow.
Versant used to be part of NBC. BC Universal spun it off to create its own thing. So Versant is now its own company, and it's all the cable channels basically. But yeah, they're trying to make Fandango a Tubi or like a Tubi of their own, I guess. I don't
Really?
really
Okay.
know. But from what I've understood, it's the first of more to come. But like what deals are Versant getting? Not
Yeah.
many. Not many. So, but it is free. It's free. So you don't got to pay. So that's a plus, I guess. So yeah.
Well, that's great because I don't know many people that's going to pay for a Bundesliga. I'm not
Yeah.
going to pay for a Bundesliga game. Just
That's probably a league I enjoy. I think I will enjoy
yeah,
season.
great atmospheres. Now,
Yeah.
if you like parody, Bayern wins every
I'm also,
title.
yeah. Yeah.
So
I
it
have a friend who's a always been a diehard Dortmund fan, so
okay.
he lives in misery with that one.
Every
So
now and again they'll win a title, like every
yeah,
12 years.
yeah, so yeah.
Okay, well this has been great. Like I said, I could go for much longer, but eventually people will turn us off, and eventually you want to go to bed and stop talking to me. Um, where can people find you?
You can find me at Braylon_Breeze on Twitter/X. That's really about the main and only platform I use. If you want to follow my personal accounts on other platforms, I guess you can. But if you want my sports media stuff, that's where I'm at. So yeah.
Very good. Well, you're doing a great job. Like as someone that lives in this sports media world, I joke with people I'm more of a sports media fan now than I am a sports fan because I just take in so much sports
It,
media. So
for
yeah,
me to get my fandom at times. Yeah, I can go down another road with that. But yeah,
so yeah, you're doing a great job and a real asset, truly, to the people that want to follow sports media, which perhaps is just like 12 people. We don't really know, but
nobody knows.
no.
I'd like to think it's more than that, and I hope it is. So, yeah.
We'll hope so. But thank you again. This has been fun. If you've watched us to the end, first off, thank you. Definitely hit the subscribe button. We'll try to make this a weekly podcast. We'll see if life allows that. But definitely glad to have you with us. Glad to have Braylon with us, and that is it. I'm terrible at getting off the air, so I'm just gonna say goodbye and hit stop. Well, hope you enjoyed our first episode of the Behind the Mic Sports Media Podcast. Big thank you to Braylon Breeze for joining me. It was amazing to get his insight on the World Cup. A lot more to come as we put together the foundation of what this podcast is going to be. If you did enjoy it, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. We will see you here next week for episode 2. Which I think is going to have a lot of baseball and NASCAR conversation to it. So if you're a baseball and or NASCAR fan, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and join us next week. So that is it for now. Huge thank you for tuning in and staying with us. And I can't wait to see what happens down the road with this brand new show. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much. Bye.